Welcome, curious minds. Okay, so picture this. A city, once this, vibrant heart of a people's identity, now,
Yeah.
oh, it's just shattered dreams.
Yeah, like walls crumbled down, gates totally burned to ash, and the people living there, the description is just stark. Great trouble and disgrace.
It's bleak.
Yeah.
But then, amidst all that ruin, one person,
Mm-hmm.
just one, dares to imagine the impossible, rebuilding it all. Welcome, everyone, to the deep dive.
Hey there. Today we're really jumping into an ancient and honestly pretty compelling story, the Book of Nehemiah.
Yeah?
Our sources for this are direct excerpts from that historical narrative, It chronicles this really extraordinary journey of leadership, community, and just sheer defiant resilience.
So our mission today, well, it's really to dig into how Nehemiah, who seems kind of ordinary at first glance, right?
Mm-hmm.
How he managed to kickstart this massive rebuilding effort, navigate some incredibly complex challenges, and even, reform an entire society.
Think of it as your shortcut, maybe, to understanding the power of vision, of strategic action, and what a community can do when it really comes together.
Exactly. And what's so striking is how it all kicks off. It starts with this raw, intensely human reaction from Nehemiah.
Right. When he first hears the news about Jerusalem, the text says he just sat down and wept,
Wow.
and then mourned and fasted for days. It wasn't a fleeting thing.
So that immediate, deep grief, what does that tell us about his connection, the weight of it all?
Well, that level of weeping and fasting for days, it really underscores his personal stake in it, doesn't it? It wasn't just bad news, it was like a physical blow.
A deeply felt burden for his people.
Exactly. A grief so profound it actually fueled his determination before he even, made a single move.
So who was this guy, Nehemiah? The text tells us he was the cupbearer to King Artaxerxes in Susa, the citadel.
Yeah, and that role, cupbearer to the king. It sounds kind of simple, but it was way more significant.
More than just serving wine.
Oh, definitely. It meant he had this close, trusted access to the king. He'd be right there, hearing royal conversations, probably advising sometimes.
Okay, so proximity and trust.
Absolutely critical for what he planned to do later. And Susa, remember, was a major capital of the massive Persian Empire. Nehemiah was right there, at the center of power.
And the catalyst, the thing that actually spurred him to action, that came from his brother Hanani.
That's right. Hanani came from Judah with the news. The remnant there, the Jews who hadn't been exiled or had returned earlier, were in great trouble and disgrace.
And the specifics. Walls broken, gates burned.
A really vivid picture of just utter ruin for their ancestral home.
Okay, so Nehemiah hears this devastating news. What's his first step after the grieving?
Well, his response wasn't just emotional. It was deeply spiritual and also strategic. Before anything else, he prays.
Right.
And it's a really detailed prayer. He confesses the sins of the Israelites, but importantly, he includes himself, his own house, his father's house.
So taking responsibility, not just blaming others.
Exactly. A powerful act of humility, of solidarity. Then he appeals to God's covenant, God's promises, faithfulness. And then, crucially, he asks for success, specifically in the presence of this man, meaning the king.
Ah, so he's already thinking ahead to that conversation.
Absolutely. It shows his faith and his courage were already lining up, grounded in this sense of divine purpose, even before he dared approach Artaxerxes.
Which brings us to that moment. The king actually notices Nehemiah looks sad.
Yeah, which was apparently unusual. The text says he had not been sad in his presence before.
Wow, so high stakes, you can almost feel the tension.
Definitely. Nehemiah admits he was very much afraid. I mean, who wouldn't be?
Right. But then he does it. He makes this incredibly bold request.
He asks to be sent to Judah to rebuild Jerusalem. Specifically, he mentions it as the city where my ancestors are buried, making it personal.
Not just about bricks and mortar, but about heritage people.
And remarkably, the king says yes. The queen was even sitting there, the text notes.
So he gets the green light. Did he get anything else?
Oh, yeah. He secured really specific vital provisions. Letters for safe passage through Trans-Euphrates, that's the whole region west of the Euphrates River, vital to cross safely.
Okay, like official travel documents.
Exactly. And a letter for Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, ordering him to supply timber.
Timber for what specifically?
For the gates of the temple citadel, for the main city wall, and even for Nehemiah's own house. He thought it all through.
And the king threw in some backup, too.
He did. Army officers and cavalry. A clear sign of royal backing, giving Nehemiah real authority.
Trouble starts brewing almost immediately, right?
Yep. As soon as the word gets out, these local officials, Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official, they were very much disturbed
Disturbed why?
that someone Nehemiah had come to promote the welfare of the Israelites. These were neighboring groups, often hostile to the Jews in Judah.
Okay, so the external conflict is set up right from the get-go.
Pretty much. A clear sign this wasn't going to be easy.
So Nehemiah arrives in Jerusalem. What's his first move on the ground?
Well, interestingly, his first move is strategic discretion. He waits 3 days, then he goes out at night.
At night? Why?
For a secret inspection of the walls. He took only a few men, didn't tell anyone else, officials, priests, nobody, what my God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem.
Keeping it close to the vest.
Exactly. He even rode his own animal because there was so much rubble, other animals couldn't get through easily. He meticulously checked the damage, gate by gate, valley gate, dung gate, getting a real first-hand look at the scale of the job.
Smart. Avoids tipping off the opposition too early and gets a clear picture.
Right. That secrecy was key. Only after that covert recon did he gather the Jewish officials, the priests, the nobles, everyone else.
And that's when he makes the pitch.
That's when he delivers this powerful rallying cry. He says, basically, you see the trouble we are in? Jerusalem's in ruins, gates are burned. Come, let us rebuild the wall, and we won't be in disgrace anymore.
How did they react?
Immediately, enthusiastically. The text says their response was, let us start rebuilding. That collective will, that shared purpose, it just ignited right there.
Amazing. So the rebuilding begins. And the text, chapter 3, really details this part, doesn't it?
Oh, it's fascinating. It shows this incredible community effort. It wasn't just like hired contractors.
It was involved.
All sorts. Eliashib, the high priest, and his fellow priests rebuilt the sheep gate. You had men from Jericho helping, men from Tekoa.
Tekoa.
Yeah, although the text makes this interesting little note that the nobles of Tekoa would not put their shoulders to the work.
Huh. So even then, you had some slackers, or maybe resistors.
Seems like it.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, the range is incredible. Goldsmiths pitched in, perfume makers.
Perfume makers, building a wall.
Yep. And even the daughters of Shallum, who was a ruler of half a district, women were involved too.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's that detail about people working near their homes.
Yes, that's striking. Many repaired sections opposite his house, or beside his house. It shows this deep personal investment. They weren't just building a wall, they were rebuilding their neighborhood, their home's security.
You could see them rebuilding specific gates, too. The Fish Gate, Valley Gate, Fountain Gate, reclaiming the city structure.
Absolutely. But as the work picks up speed, so does the opposition.
Sanballat and Tobiah again.
Them and others, they move from just being disturbed to active mockery and plotting.
Right, the taunts. Like, what are these feeble Jews doing? Can they finish in a day?
Exactly. And Tobiah's infamous line,
Right.
if even a fox climbed up on it, he would break down their wall of stones. Just pure contempt, trying to demoralize them.
How did Nehemiah handle that psychological warfare?
Well, he didn't really get into a slanging match. He prayed, asked God to basically turn their insults back on them.
But it wasn't just words, was it? The threats got physical.
They did. Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, the men of Ashdod, basically all the neighbors, they explicitly plotted to fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble.
So a real threat of attack.
Yes, and it started to affect the builders. They got scared, worn out. They said, the strength of the laborers is giving out, and there's so much rubble. We cannot rebuild.
That's a critical moment.
Yeah.
Morale is low. The threat is real. How does Nehemiah lead through that?
It's a masterclass, really. He combines faith and practical action. He tells them, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord. And fight. Fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, your homes.
Powerful words. But words alone aren't always enough.
True. And that leads to probably the most iconic image from the whole book.
The builders working with one hand.
And holding a weapon in the other, exactly. Half his men worked, the other half stood guard with spears, shields, bows, armor.
They had a system.
Oh, yeah. Even a trumpet blower stood beside Nehemiah, ready to sound the alarm if an attack came, so everyone could rally.
Constant vigilance.
So intense that Nehemiah says he, his brothers, his men, they did not take off our clothes. Each had his weapon, even when he went for water. Total round-the-clock commitment and readiness.
It's incredible dedication. But the opposition tried other tactics too, right? Not just direct threats.
Absolutely. Sanballat tried to lure Nehemiah away. 4 times he sent messages trying to get him to meet on the plain of Ono, probably planning an ambush or something.
And Nehemiah's response?
Consistent refusal. I am carrying on a great project and cannot go down. he wouldn't be distracted.
So Sanballat escalates.
Yep. He sends a fifth message, this time an unsealed letter, meaning everyone could read it, accusing Nehemiah of planning to rebel and make himself king.
Ooh, that's dangerous. That could get back to King Artaxerxes.
Exactly. A direct attempt to undermine his standing with the Persian authorities, but Nehemiah saw right through it and denied it flatly.
Were there threats from within too, like internal plots?
Yes. There was this incident with a prophet named Shemaiah. He tried to scare Nehemiah into hiding in the temple, saying assassins were coming that night.
But Nehemiah didn't buy it.
Nope. He recognized it as a trap. He said, "Should a man like me run away?" He realized Shemaiah had likely been hired by Tobiah and Sanballat to intimidate him, make him look cowardly, or perhaps even violate the temple rules.
So despite all of this, the external threats, the psychological games, the internal plots.
The wall was completed.
And how long did it take?
An astonishing 52 days.
52 days. That's unbelievable speed.
It really is. And the impact on their enemies was huge. The text says they were afraid and lost their self-confidence. Why? Because they realized that this work had been done with the help of our God.
A divine element acknowledged even by the opposition.
Right. But what's really fascinating and maybe a bit sobering is that even with this victory, the internal problems weren't solved.
How so?
The text mentions that many Jewish nobles were still secretly corresponding with Tobiah. They had sworn oaths to him, there were intermarriages. These problematic alliances ran deep, even within the leadership.
Wow. So the external wall is up, but the internal divisions are still a major issue.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that challenges aren't always just out there. Often the internal stuff is just as tricky, if not more so.
So the physical wall is done, but the city itself, it needed more than just walls, right?
Definitely. The text says Jerusalem was large and spacious, but there were few people in it, and the houses had not yet been rebuilt. Phase 2, really?
Populating the city and establishing order.
Precisely. Nehemiah organizes this big assembly for registration, family by family. They even found the old records of those who first returned from exile.
And how do they get more people to actually live in Jerusalem?
They cast lots. 1 out of every 10 people from the surrounding areas was chosen to move into the city, the holy city.
Was it mandatory?
The casting of lots implies a requirement, but the text also specifically commends those who volunteered to live there, recognizing it was a significant move.
He also appointed officials, gatekeepers, singers.
Yep. Reestablishing the structures of community life and worship. And significantly, he put his brother, Hanani, and this other guy, Hananiah, the commander of the citadel, in charge of Jerusalem's security.
Why them?
The text explicitly highlights their qualifications: integrity and fear of God. Character was key for Nehemiah in leadership roles.
Okay, so structure, population. But then chapter 5 hits, and it's a whole different kind of problem.
Oh, yeah. This is where we see Nehemiah tackling social injustice head-on. There was this great outcry from the ordinary Jewish people.
An outcry about what?
Dire economic hardship, famine conditions, people having to mortgage their fields, vineyards, houses just to get grain, borrowing money simply to pay the king's taxes.
Harsh conditions.
But it gets worse. Some were so desperate they were forced to sell their own sons and daughters into servitude to fellow Jews just to survive.
Whoa. Selling their own children.
To their own people.
Exactly. A flagrant violation of the law, which prohibited exploiting fellow Israelites like that, especially charging interest or usury.
How did Nehemiah react when he heard this? He was furious, very angry, the text says. He immediately confronted the nobles and officials, the wealthy elite who were doing this.
Accused them directly.
Yes, of exacting usury from your own countrymen. He didn't mince words. He demanded they immediately return the fields, the houses, everything, and the interest they had charged.
Did they listen?
Faced with his moral authority and righteous anger, they agreed. They complied and even took an oath to do it.
That's decisive leadership. But Nehemiah also led by example, didn't he?
Extraordinarily so. He mentions that for the entire 12 years he served as governor, from year 20 to year 32 of King Artaxerxes, he and his brothers never took the official governor's food allowance.
Why not?
Because, as he put it, the demands were heavy on these people. He refused to add to their burden. Instead, he fed about 150 Jewish officials and others at his own table daily, out of his own pocket.
Wow.
And he made a point of saying he devoted himself to the wall project and didn't acquire any land for himself during that time.
That's incredible. What kind of leadership does that show?
It's leadership grounded in sacrifice and integrity. By sharing the burden, by refusing his own legitimate perks, he earned the moral authority to demand justice and integrity from others. It's powerful, especially when dealing with internal corruption and hardship.
Definitely. So he tackles the physical wall, the social injustice.
Sure.
What about the spiritual side?
That becomes a major focus too. A real spiritual revival kicks off, largely led by Ezra the scribe.
Ezra. Right. He reads the law.
Yes, he reads the law of Moses aloud to this huge assembly, men, women, everyone who could understand from early morning until noon, a marathon session.
Just reading. Or explaining, too.
Good point. The Levites were there, moving among the people, making it clear and giving the meaning so they really understood what they were hearing.
And the people's reaction.
They started weeping as they listened, maybe convicted by the law, realizing how far they'd fallen short.
But they were told not to weep.
Right. Nehemiah, Ezra, the Levites told them essentially, today is sacred, don't mourn or weep. And then that famous line, for the joy of the Lord is your strength.
A shift from sorrow to joy.
Immediately, the people went off to eat, drink, share food with those who had nothing, and celebrate with great joy because they had understood the words read to them.
Then came the Feast of Tabernacles.
Yes, they rediscovered the instructions for it in the law they'd just heard, so they built the booths, the temporary shelters, and lived in them for the festival.
Had that been forgotten?
The text says it hadn't been celebrated like that, with that level of participation and understanding, since the days of Joshua son of Nun. Their joy was very great, a real reconnection to their roots.
This understanding and joy, did it lead to like a deeper commitment?
It absolutely did. There was another assembly specifically for confession. The Israelites separated themselves from foreigners, stood up, and confessed their sins and the wickedness of their ancestors.
How long did this go on?
They spent about a quarter of the day reading the law again, and another quarter confessing and worshiping.
Wow. And the Levites led a prayer.
A long historical prayer, recounting God's faithfulness all the way from Abraham through the Exodus, the wilderness, the Promised Land, but also recounting Israel's repeated disobedience and rebellion.
So acknowledging the whole picture, God's faithfulness, their unfaithfulness.
Exactly. They ended by acknowledging they were basically servants in their own land because of their sins, but recommitting themselves to God.
And this led to a formal agreement.
Yes, what the text calls a binding agreement. It was put in writing and sealed by the leaders, the Levites, the priests, a formal national pledge.
What did they specifically promise to do or not do?
Several key things. No more intermarriage with the surrounding peoples. No business buying or selling on the Sabbath or holy days.
Okay, religious observance.
Yes. And also economic justice, forgiving debts every 7th year, letting the land rest.
And supporting the temple.
Crucially, yes, they committed to specific financial support. An annual temple tax, 1/3 of a shekel, providing wood for the altar fire, bringing their first fruits, their firstborn animals and sons for redemption, and paying their tithes faithfully to the Levites.
A comprehensive commitment.
And they summed it up with this declaration: we will not neglect the house of our God. They recognized their responsibility to maintain the center of their worship.
So, wall built, social issues addressed, spiritual revival, formal commitment. What came next? A celebration.
The dedication of the wall. It was a huge, joyous event described in chapter 12. Levites and singers were brought in from all around, cymbals, harps, lyres, lots of music.
How did they actually dedicate it?
Nehemiah organized 2 large choirs. They processed up onto the top of the completed wall, went in opposite directions, singing thanks, and eventually met up near the temple area.
A parade on the wall.
Pretty much. There were great sacrifices offered, massive rejoicing. The sound, the text says, the sound of their joy in Jerusalem could be heard far away. A real high point.
It sounds like it. The culmination of so much effort and overcoming so many obstacles.
Absolutely. But Nehemiah's work still wasn't quite done.
Oh, what happened?
Well, the text indicates he returned to the king, Artaxerxes, for a period. He'd been governor for 12 years, remember? When he eventually came back to Jerusalem, he found some things had seriously slipped.
Backsliding already. After all that commitment.
Sadly, yes. He made some pretty shocking discoveries.
Like what?
First, major temple profanation. Eliashib, the high priest, who was apparently connected to Tobiah by marriage or alliance.
Tobiah, the old enemy.
The very same. Eliashib had actually cleared out a large storeroom in the temple courts, a room meant for grain offerings, incense, temple vessels, and given it to Tobiah to use, basically letting the enemies set up shop in God's house.
No way. How did Nehemiah react?
He was furious again. He physically threw all Tobiah's household goods out of the room, ordered the rooms purified, and restored them to their proper use. Very direct action.
Okay, what else did he find?
He found the Levites had been neglected again. They weren't receiving their tithes, the portions assigned to them in that binding agreement.
So they couldn't serve the temple full time.
Exactly. They'd gone back to their own fields just to survive. The temple service was faltering.
What did Nehemiah do?
He confronted the officials responsible, basically asking, why is the house of God neglected? He recalled the Levites, and this time he appointed trustworthy men, a priest, a scribe, a Levite, and an assistant to be in charge of the storerooms and distribute the portions fairly, putting systems in place.
Trying to make the reform stick this time.
Right. Then there was the Sabbath. It was being widely ignored again.
How so?
People in Judah were working, treading wine presses, loading goods onto donkeys, bringing all sorts of merchandise into Jerusalem to sell on the Sabbath. Even traders from Tyre were setting up shop selling fish and goods.
So blatant disregard for the agreement they'd just made?
Completely. Nehemiah took strict measures. He ordered the city gates shut just before the Sabbath began and not reopened until it was over. He even posted his own servants at the gates to make sure no commercial loads came in.
You got tough on the merchants.
He warned them off. They camped outside the wall once or twice, hoping to do business maybe right after Sabbath ended. He warned them if they did it again, he'd use force. He also commanded the Levites to purify themselves and guard the gates to keep the Sabbath holy. He was serious about protecting it.
Wow. One more major issue he found.
Intermarriage. Again, he discovered many Jewish men had married women from Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab, the surrounding nations.
And the problem with that, in his view,
it wasn't just about marriage. He observed their children couldn't even speak the language of Judah properly. They spoke the language of Ashdod or other places. He saw it as a fundamental threat to their cultural and religious identity, a path toward assimilation and forgetting their covenant.
his reaction sounds pretty intense in the text.
It was extreme by our standards today, for sure. The text says he confronted them, called down curses, struck some of them, pulled out their hair.
Oh.
Yeah. And made them swear an oath to God. You shall not give your daughters in marriage to their sons, nor take their daughters for your sons or for yourselves. He even brought up King Solomon, reminding them that even he, beloved by God, was led into sin by foreign wives.
He saw it as an existential threat.
Clearly. And this wasn't just a problem among the general populace. It reached the very top.
How so?
He found out that one of the sons of Joiada, who was the son of Eliashib, the high priest, was actually the son-in-law of Horo. Guess who?
Sanballat the Horonite, the other main adversary.
Bingo. The infiltration of these hostile alliances went right into the high priestly family. Nehemiah's response? Drove him away from me. No compromise on this.
So his final actions seemed to be about purification and reestablishing order.
Yes. Purifying the priesthood and Levites from all foreign influence, reassigning duties, making sure the systems for contributions were working again, trying to solidify the reforms.
And throughout the book, there's that recurring prayer he makes.
Yes, again and again, especially after recounting his actions, he prays, "Remember me, O my God, for good," or "Remember me with favor, my God."
What does that tell us?
It speaks volumes, I think, about his deep motivation, his desire for God's approval, maybe his awareness of the sheer difficulty and opposition he faced, and his reliance on God to validate his efforts. It feels very human alongside his decisive actions.
So pulling it all together, this deep dive into Nehemiah, it's just a powerful story of leadership, isn't it? Driven by vision, by faith, but also incredibly practical hands-on action.
Absolutely. It highlights these huge themes, the power of collective effort, how you overcome just immense adversity, both external and internal, and maybe that constant, often tiring need for vigilance and reform in any community or organization. Things can slip back easily.
It's true. So what can we, listening today, take away from this ancient story in Nehemiah.pds? It really makes you ask, how do communities mobilize for these huge tasks, especially when they're facing pressure from outside and dealing with fractures inside?
Right. And what role does that personal integrity, that leading by example like Nehemiah, refusing the governor's allowance play? Especially when you're confronting not just enemies, but maybe moral decay within your own ranks.
Yeah. This deep dive really reminds us, I think, that real societal transformation, it often starts with just one person feeling deep empathy about a problem, just like Nehemiah weeping. But then it has to be followed by this relentless commitment to action, even when the odds seem impossible, even when the issues are deeply entrenched.
That's sad.
So thinking about all this, What stands out most to you about how Nehemiah juggled such a wide range of challenges? I mean, from literal walls to complex social justice issues to deep spiritual commitment, and did it all while navigating the tricky politics of the Persian Empire.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep getting well informed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.